Hello, my name is Carissa Hartung, and I will talk to you today about mass communication. Mass communication shapes our perceptions, it engages audiences, and it influences social norms and behaviors. One thing I would like you to consider is, should mass communicators be required to verify the truthfulness of the information that they have before releasing it? Mass communication affects us more than we realize. However, we must be willing participants to allow media to inject us and have its intended effect. I will share a video with you which has long been the theory which contradicts what I have just proposed. This video can be found on b2bwhiteboard.com. They are an open source provider of educational services. You can also like or subscribe to their YouTube content. Additionally, more information can be found on study.com with an article titled Magic Bullet Theory, Definition and Origins and Effects by Jude Bertler from 2023.
Have you ever heard of the hypodermic needle theory? It's a communication theory that has been around since the early 1900s. The theory suggests that media messages are like a hypodermic needle, injecting ideas directly into the audience's minds. It assumes that audiences are passive and easily influenced. While the theory has been widely criticized, it's still relevant today. Think about how social media can spread fake news and propaganda. A study by McQuail and Windall found that media messages can influence attitudes, opinions, and behaviors. It's important to be aware of the messages we consume and the impact they can have. So, next time you're watching TV or scrolling through social media, remember the hypodermic needle theory. Stay informed and think critically about the messages you're receiving.
So that was the hypodermic needle theory, also known as the magic bullet. And that transitions us into mass communication's influence. Now, we are inundated daily by mass communication. In our day, it would be more difficult to remove ourselves from participating in mass communication than it would be to access it. It often affects our daily experiences, and it can shape public opinion and behaviors. I'm thinking of those riots that happen based on things that people see in the mass media. It also can connect audiences globally, and it can influence political and cultural landscapes. There are certain characteristics of mass communication. It is able to transcend physical boundaries and alter sensory experiences. This shapes the way that information is perceived and acted upon. Now, it does have key functions. It overcomes face-to-face limitations, reaches mass audiences. It can provide varied information and affect opinions. One of the main characteristics of mass communication is its ability to overcome the physical limitations, which are present in face-to-face communication. A normal restriction of the human voice is that it can only travel a limited distance. Compared to using a form of mass communication, a person can literally reach millions oceans away. It as well provides real-time updates. I am sure we can all imagine a time when we followed a specific natural disaster very closely. I'm thinking back to the earthquake in 2023 in Turkey and Syria. I followed that daily, almost hourly. Another characteristic is it lacks sensory richness. Our senses allow us to become more connected to our speaker, and it can change our experience in a crucial way. It adds context. And when we are participating in mass communication, that's different. We are most exclusively only utilizing our sense of sight and sound. Can you think of a time when you were overcome by a strong smell during the course of your communication experience? And did this change how you received the information? Recently, I was at a conference and there was a kitchen down the hall and they were baking fresh bread. And I will say that this put me into a better mood. In this photo, we can see how digital communication lacks physical touch. Most of us have received bad news. In my experience, bad news is better to receive in person, such as when the person giving the information is able to place an arm on the shoulder of the person receiving it. This allows them to communicate that they care. It shows empathy, whereas that is not possible through mass communication. Part of mass communication is that there is delayed feedback and the communicators have more audience control. We can't quickly jump through the screen of our cell phones and possibly rewind time to tell the author that what we think they are saying is ridiculous. Instead, we are left responding to them in whatever avenue they have allowed us and wait for a response. If they respond, and if they have allowed us to communicate with them in any way. This gives the presenter more control over their audience and also leaves some mystery. Unless we are scrolling through the comment section, we may not know how the masses receive these messages, but we can control our own personal influence around us as we partake the information. Well, there are certain functions of mass media. It functions to inform us, instruct us, it interprets, and it provides entertainment. We have a need to satisfy curiosity. Receiving this information can also reduce anxiety and uncertainty as we better understand the world and how we fit in it. The amount of information that is available these days is overwhelming compared to the amount of information that was available, say, 50 years ago, when there was only a few television networks, radio stations, and newspapers to compete to keep us informed. Mass communication informs us. It informs the public. We, again, have this need to satisfy our curiosity. Can you think of a time when you listened to a news about a certain crime that had been committed, and you already came to a conclusion about the guilt of the accused individual? I want you to consider how much the media affected this conclusion. Mass communication interprets. They interpret messages in more or less than ethical ways. Newspapers have long interpreted current events, and now cable television and radio personalities offer commentary on political events, cultural, social, and they are full of subjective interpretations. Some of them operate in ethical gray areas, and they may use formats that seem like traditional news. And most are open about their motives. Some media outlets exist to primarily instruct us or inform, such as National Geographic Channel, Discovery Channel. But there are other networks such as CNN, which function to inform. Now, cable networks like Fox and MSNBC, they mix it up. They inform and interpret. Part of mass communication allows people to be brought together, and it also can divert. Media can bring people closer, and that serves to bond them. For example, people who share common interests or values can gather to specific outlets where they can share information and also be watching a like-minded outlet. Can you think back to a time when you were watching the events of 9/11 that influenced you? When you look at this photo, does it provoke certain feelings? For me, the word united comes to mind. Does seeing this photo encourage you to participate in the Red Cross initiative? Now, what do you think this image means? There are people on the outside. There are people on the inside of the wall looking down. Now, this photo represents gatekeeping. The media serves as a gatekeeper. It is able to control our access to something, generally deemed as important to either of those on one side or the other of the gate. And they serve as the initial judge because they get to determine what they deem is worthy of information worthy for us to receive. And they get to make the decision on who receives it and exactly what they will receive. In this photo, it helps illustrate how all of the arrows are received into the shield or the gate, and only a limited amount reach the other side, which is where the general population resides. Now, one limitation that mass communication has is that they must rely on another source to allow us to access their information. Not completely unlike communication in person, whereas there can be intervening factors that can determine if a person is able to receive the information, such as a loud crying baby, or really stinky smells and we just can't focus, or if we're hungry. But mass communication specifically relies on us possessing a tangible item to read their story, or hear their story, such as a cell phone, computer, or magazine. So, as we talked about the hypodermic needle approach, objectivity isn't always objective, and the transparency of the media and their objectivity might be less so. They can have content limiting functions, paid or targeted ads, hidden agendas. Just an example is news agencies. They seem to have agendas, such as if you're following a far right or a far left news source, you will receive information that matches the narrative of this news outlet that they are trying or attempting to spoon feed us. There has been evolution to these communication theories. So, in the freedom of the press, in the First Amendment, this allows the media to act as our figurative eyes and ears. Newer theories incorporate more context and state that both the sender and the receiver interpret messages based on their own personal experiences. Now, mass media scholars would like to know about our agency and how we affect our own reality. If we reject or reinterpret a given message based on our own experiences, this can either give them more or less control. In conclusion, these communication theorists analyze the intentional and unintentional effects of media. They claim intense effects that the media has, or intentional or unintentional. They've also stated that the media has poor effect on their audience. They claim that media has little power to affect its viewers, but in recent years, theorists have finally admitted that they've come to a more inclusive decision that media controls what it gives, but people have the power to determine how, if they receive or identify with or reject or reinterpret what they are being told.